Great. So welcome to the Voyager's Travel Discussion Club and our program on Santa Fe, New Mexico. So why did we pick Santa Fe? Santa Fe really has an allure far greater than its size. After all, its population is only about 84,000 people, about the size of Cicero, Illinois. I think it comes down to a few factors. First of all, Santa Fe is packed with history. It's the oldest US capital city, founded in 1610. It's also the oldest European settlement west of the Mississippi, and maybe the second oldest city in the US period, after St. Augustine, Florida. It's also interesting in that it melds three cultures in a unique way. First, the Native American culture. Tribes of Native Americans and their peoples have lived in the area for centuries prior to the arrival of European colonists. And there's also this strong Mexican influence, with New Mexico being a border state to Mexico. And finally, you have the influx of European culture with the advent of Spanish colonists. The next factor that I think makes Santa Fe so interesting and appealing is that it served as an inspiration for artists, most notably Georgia O'Keeffe, who lived and worked here for decades prior to her death in 1986. In fact, Santa Fe has grown into one of the most important art capitals in the United States. An estimated 10% of the community jobs are art related. And Santa Fe has the third largest art market in the US after New York and Los Angeles. And Susan will talk a little bit more about art and some of the galleries in her section. So if you have an interest in history, art, and culture, Santa Fe is sure to resonate with you. So as you can see at the map on the left, Santa Fe is in the north central portion of New Mexico up here. Most people will fly into Albuquerque, which is down here, a little bit southwest of Santa Fe. It's about an hour's drive to get into Santa Fe. And once you're there, you'll find that the town actually radiates from the Santa Fe Plaza in the historic center of town. So we're going to break our discussion, of Santa Fe into, sorry about that, into a few daily itineraries plus some day trips that you might want to take. So the first section will cover the historic center of Santa Fe and which is surrounding the Santa Fe Plaza. The second discussion will talk about Canyon Road and Museum Hill. And the third will cover the Railyard's Art District and the Santa Fe Opera. And as I mentioned before, we'll talk about some day trips that you might use Santa Fe as a jumping off point to explore. So our journey begins in the heart of Santa Fe, its historic center. As you can see on the map here, the Santa Fe Plaza takes up some prominent real estate at the center of the map. It's right where you see the little spoke and wheel kind of figure on the map. And most of the sites that I'll be talking about are within easy walking distance if you have comfortable shoes. So to start the trip, I suggest trying a breakfast burrito at a local food institution called Tia Sophia's. It's just a few blocks west of the plaza. Few places in town do a breakfast burrito better than Tia Sophia's. So this is an example of New Mexican food, which is distinct from Mexican food. And it's also not the same as Tex-Mex food. It's its own thing. And one of the things you'll often be asked in Santa Fe when eating New Mexican cuisine is, do you want red, green, or Christmas? And they mean, do you want your salsa or your sauce to be made from green chilies, from red chilies, or a mixture of both, as you can see on the plate here. The chilies that they use in New Mexican cuisine are often Hatch chilies, which come from the area around a town called Hatch, New Mexico, in the far southern part of the state. If you're not into into Chili's, you can certainly get normal American breakfast items like pancakes and eggs. You don't have to feel like this is something you have to get when you're at Tia Sophia's. The next place that I'll talk about is the Palace of the Governors. This flanks one side of the Santa Fe Plaza. It's the oldest continuously used public building in the US, dating back to 1610. And it's become a symbol of the city, though a distinctly colonial one. Today, it's officially part of the New Mexico History Museum, but in years past, it has served as the seat of power for the government at the time. Interestingly, Lew Wallace, who was the territorial governor in 1880, authored the novel Ben-Hur while living here in the Palace of the Governors. In more recent years, the exterior sidewalk has served as sort of a daily market for vendors of crafts and art. And they're assigned a lottery, or via a lottery, a spot underneath this overhang. And they sell all sorts of goods there. I think COVID has had some negative impact on the number of vendors that are allowed to be there, but I think it's still going in some fashion. The next stop is the Cathedral Basilica of St. Francis of Assisi. It's a Romanesque structure that construction began on in 1869, and it sort of has become one of the landmarks of the city. It's a block east of the Santa Fe Plaza. One interesting thing about this is if you take a look at the photo on the left, there's a large tree that is in front of the rightmost tower. That's a Norway spruce tree. And sadly, just a month ago, this tree was toppled during high winds, and it's no longer standing. The wood from the tree, though, is being targeted for repurposing by local artists and crafts people to make it into new works. So I think that's nice, but it's a real shame because I think they would decorate that tree during holiday time and that sort of thing. So it's a shame that it's gone. I've mentioned Santa Fe Plaza several times already, so it seems like it might be a good time to talk about it more at length. It's really the beating heart of the city, especially during festivals and holidays. If for no other reason than to just sit down and people watch for a few minutes. The Santa Fe Plaza actually served as the terminus of the Santa Fe Trail, which was in operation from about 1820 to 1880. Unlike the Oregon Trail, which brought settlers west, the Santa Fe Trail was primarily a commercial route, taking goods back and forth between New Mexico and Missouri. In more recent events in the plaza, an obelisk, which you can see in the photo at the left, it has been sitting at the center of the plaza since 1868, but it was torn down in October of 2020 by protesters. And they objected to the wording on the plaque that is at the base of the obelisk. And specifically, the memorial was dedicated to the heroes who had fallen in various battles with savage Indians. And they really took offense to the phrase savage Indians, understandably. And to date, the obelisk has not been replaced, though I'm not sure if they know exactly what they're going to do with it. The two photos to the right of the page here are of the Five and Dime, and this is located on the southwest corner of the plaza. According to lore, this is where the Frito pie got its start, though Texas would like to differ. If you're unfamiliar with the concept of Frito pie, it basically uses a bag of Fritos open lengthwise as the base layer. And it's kind of the serving container too, as you can see on the right. So they take these Fritos and they ladle some New Mexican style chili, which is kind of beans and some of that sauce that they're so famous for. It's something you should try at least once in your life, and what better place to do it than its birthplace? Here's the Five and Dime. At the northwest corner of the plaza lies the New Mexico Museum of Fine Art. This is a great place to view art inspired by the landscapes of the Southwest, but it also serves as one of the best examples of the Pueblo revival style of architecture. As you can see in the photo there, it's characterized by kind of earth tone construction of adobe, and it has organic, kind of smooth edged corners. And this style has really been in use in this area since the early 1900s, but it was actually codified into zoning law since the 1950s. And it gives Santa Fe a uniquely cohesive look. Speaking of art, when you talk about Santa Fe, you have to talk about the contributions of Georgia O'Keeffe. This artist moved to Santa Fe from New York permanently in the late 1940s, following several trips beginning in the mid 1920s. She actually loved the light in New Mexico and found inspiration in the landscape and the nature in the area. She's most well known for her abstract paintings of flowers. The Georgia O'Keeffe Museum is fairly small, and it's really a must visit if you go to Santa Fe. In addition to her paintings and drawings, you'll also find lovely sculptures here by the artist. She calls them abstractions. You can see one on the right. The museum has recently announced plans to move to a larger space in Santa Fe, which should allow for more items from the permanent collection to be on display at any time. Southeast of the plaza, a couple of blocks, is the former Roman Catholic church called the Loretto Chapel. As construction ended in the late 1870s, the architect brought in from France for the project died suddenly. Church leaders looked around and realized that there was no way to get from the main floor to the choir loft, so they prayed for several days for a solution. After local carpenters were not really able to provide one, some of them suggested, I would just put a ladder up to get to the choir, but that wasn't really a workable solution. So legend has it, on the 9th day of prayer, an itinerant carpenter came to the church looking for work and bringing his toolbox with him. And he devised this lovely helix-shaped circular staircase without a circular or a central support. So that red thing in the middle that you can see there is just a banner. It's not like a load-bearing column or something. So he built this staircase over the next several months and disappeared without taking any pay, according to legend. So the staircase has since been called the miraculous staircase for its unusual history as well as its construction style. So that's been a full day. And by this point, you've probably worked up quite an appetite. So my suggestion for dinner is to go to a place called the Tune-Up Cafe. It's less than a 10-minute drive southwest of the plaza. And the Tune-Up Cafe is really a favorite of locals. This makes it a nice change of pace from the typical touristic diners that you might find when traveling. The menu is eclectic, providing something for everyone. So Susan is now going to take us on to our next several sites to visit. If you want to take it away, Susan?
Yes. Whoops. There we go. So I'm going to start the next day of travel in Santa Fe on Canyon Road. Canyon Road is a short, about a 10-minute walk from Santa Fe Plaza that Mike has been talking about, kind of the central area of Santa Fe. It is a visit to Canyon Road is all about art and a wide variety of art, as you will see. Canyon Road is a popular picturesque street. It's home to 100 art galleries or thereabouts. And they're all housed in the Pueblo style adobes and territorial homes that Mike has mentioned to you. They're similar to the houses that you can find throughout Santa Fe. The majority of the galleries on Canyon Road are located along a 1/2 mile stretch, which makes it an easy 1 mile loop to walk up and back down the street to look at the galleries. There are also outdoor sculpture gardens with really innovative and stunning sculptures along the path, making it a great way to spend the afternoon, even without going inside of a building. You can find a variety of art along Canyon Road, from contemporary to Western to Indigenous pieces, and you're welcome to wander along and pop into the galleries that you find the most interesting. However, there is another option that would take it up a level when you're wanting to tour Canyon Road, and that is to take a private curated Canyon Road tour. Typically, these private tours are about 2 hours long. They range in price, but they're usually around $50 per person. They are interactive and experiential, and a great experience for art lovers or anyone interested in learning more about art. On one of these tours, you'll learn about the art, you'll learn about the history, and you'll be exposed to some curated galleries that are in the area. Typically, you'll go to some of the more landmark big name galleries, but you'll also go to some of the off the beaten path venues to provide you with a wide range of artistic styles. One of the better known galleries that you'll probably visit on one of these tours, or that you might visit on your own, is the Zeppelin Lambert Gallery. This gallery is known for its Indigenous and Southwestern art, and it has been recognized as a premier source for the works of the early artists of the Taos Society of Artists and the Santa Fe Art Colony, and also for American paintings of the 19th and the early 20th century. The gallery also features a superior collection of traditional New Mexican furniture, and there is a garden that complements the gallery grounds that features the works of the famed artist Alan Hauser, as you can see here on the right, in the outdoor sculpture garden. The gallery itself is housed in a historic adobe, and a stop here feels like a visit to the best kind of museum. It's small, it's intimate, and the staff are very friendly and helpful and welcoming. Another one of the artists that you might see at the gallery is Mary Russell Farrell Colton, and Colton's landscapes really embody this style of tonalism, which is kind of characterized by simplified forms and harmonious but muted colors, as you can see here in this landscape that she painted. After visiting a gallery or two or three, you might need to have a break and to have a pick-me-up. And the Tea House is the perfect stop along Canyon Road to grab breakfast, lunch, a snack, or just a unique cup of tea. They have an outdoor tree-shaded patio, and it's probably one of the best of the city's outdoor dining options. You can get sandwiches, salads, snacks, desserts, but as the name would suggest, the focus here is on the tea menu, and it includes over 150 varieties of tea, with names like Freak of Nature, Little Melon Seed, and Duck Shit Oolong, as well as the Lapacho Orange Vanilla, whose menu description inexplicably contains a warning against drinking while pregnant, which not sure why. After your break, you may want to consider wandering to the Nadre Matucci Galleries, which is a high-end gallery that is also adjacent to Canyon Road. This gallery specializes in important historical American art, also from the Taos Society of Artists. And if you don't know what the Taos Society of Artists is, it was a group of early 20th century artists who established the area of Taos as an art colony, and it has had an impact far beyond just the state of New Mexico. In summer, Plan to spend time wandering the shady sculpture garden behind the gallery. It's a destination in its own right. And then it has a sister gallery on Canyon Road, the Morning Star Gallery, which focuses on indigenous antiques. So that is also worth your visit. Another thing to keep in mind that after you explore Canyon Road, you might want to walk east to where Canyon Road intersects with Acequia Madre. Acequia Madre parallels Canyon Road, but it is a world apart. It is a quiet, tree-lined, unpaved road that really embodies that quintessential Santa Fe. It's a residential street with these graceful, rambling adobe homes. They're very expensive houses, but it's a beautiful road worth seeking out if you are in this part of Santa Fe. After a day of gallery hopping for a memorable dining and entertainment experience, you might want to check out El Farol. You will probably need to book a table in advance if you want to attend their flamenco dinner show. This is located at the top of Canyon Road. You'll enjoy a light meal of authentic Spanish tapas, or they also have full entrees, followed by a world-class flamenco performance that's in a very intimate setting. It is very reminiscent of the original caves of old Spain's Granada. You'll need to arrive between 6:30 and 7 for your dinner service. And after that, after a dinner service, it's followed by this flamenco performance. It's really a lot of fun. If you're not looking for entertainment and you're really looking more for high-end fine dining, then you may want to choose Geronimo instead. That's also on Canyon Road. Geronimo is a fine dining restaurant housed within an authentic adobe home. The atmosphere is warm and inviting, and the name of the restaurant comes from Geronimo Lopez, who built this elegant Borrego house in 1756. There are thick adobe walls, kiva fireplaces, and wood beams surrounding you as you dine on the award-winning offerings of Geronimo. Its global eclectic menu changes seasonally and could include such items as this wasabi Caesar salad shown here on the left, or the 72-hour sous vide short ribs that are shown on the right. Geronimo is probably the top or one of the top restaurants in Santa Fe and definitely worth trying. The next stop is going to be Museum Hill. Museum Hill is about 2 miles south of Santa Fe, and as the name suggests, is a hilltop that conveniently houses some of Santa Fe's top cultural museums, all in one area, making it easy to visit multiple museums in one stop. And I will say, to get to it, you drive through a residential area, kind of suburban Santa Fe, which is a really neat drive and gives you the true feel of what it's like to live in Santa Fe. And if you get the New Mexico Culture Pass, you can access all of the museums on Museum Hill, as well as other cultural sites around New Mexico. But you can also purchase individual tickets to each museum if you only want to hit one or two. So we'll start with the Museum of Spanish Colonial Art. This exhibits works that are focused on the Spanish colonial period of New Mexico's history. Visitors will find scores of bultos, which are carved wooden sculptures of religious figures, retablos, which are painted depictions of religious figures, paintings, and fiber arts, all on display. They're all housed in this really striking example of the Spanish colonial architect for which Santa Fe is famous. And if you have younger visitors with you, they will love the costume corner, where they can try on traditional outfits that are from the Spanish colonial era. Also on Museum Hill is the Museum of International Folk Art. And this will give you a dose of color and a sense of cultures worldwide. Its collection showcases toys and textiles from more than 100 countries, and represents the largest international folk art collection in the world. You will want to be sure to build in plenty of time to peruse a full wing that is dedicated to these miniature dioramas that are from the collection of architect and designer Alexander Gerard, two of which I have shown here on the slide. They are really spectacular and intricate and detailed and pretty amazing. This is one of the state's most popular museums, you should know. The Museum of Indian Arts and Culture is home to more than 70,000 artifacts of the Native Southwest. This museum fosters an appreciation for Native arts, history, languages, and way of life, with a wide variety of paintings and sculptures, textiles, and more. It is, as is common with most of these Museum Hill locations that I'm telling you about, they do hold free docent-led tours daily. Just call ahead to confirm, because with COVID, it may be less regularly, but you know, getting a docent tour to any of these museums is really a great way to go, because you learn so much more. Also on Museum Hill is the Wheelwright Museum of the American Indian, which spotlights both contemporary and traditional Native American art. The exhibitions are housed in an 8-sided building, which is a nod to the traditional Hogan home that is used by the Diné or Navajo people. The Hogan is still a sacred home for Navajo who practice traditional religion. Every family, even if they live most of the time in a newer home, must have the traditional Hogan for ceremonies and to keep themselves in balance. The Navajos used to make their houses, their Hogan homes, of wooden poles, tree bark, and mud, and the doorway of each Hogan would open to the east so that they could get the morning sun as well as good blessings. So in terms of the museum, one of the highlights is this Case Trading Post museum shop that's featured at the top. And you will find one of Santa Fe's most impressive collections of vintage jewelry and crafts by local Native American artists. It's truly a highlight of the Santa Fe visit. It's really spectacular jewelry. The Wheelwright Museum of the American Indian is the oldest nonprofit and independent museum in New Mexico. And if you've had enough of being inside, also on Museum Hill is the Santa Fe Botanical Garden, which features the natural flora and fauna native to northern New Mexico. In addition, there is an art trail that's dotted with sculpted works of by several different artists. And they also have a lot of hands-on classes throughout the year, and there are guided tours available of the Santa Fe Botanical Garden as well. This unique attraction celebrates the rich horticultural heritage and the biodiversity of the Southwest region. The landscape was designed by architect W. Gary Smith, and when touring it, you're going to see plenty of stunning natural as well as man-made gardens. And after doing all of this touring, if you work up an appetite, then you're going to want to take a break at the Museum Hill Cafe, which has a beautiful outdoor patio that looks out over the landscape. Two of the favorite dishes here are the chicken tostados on the top and the stuffed shrimp poblanos on the bottom. You can just have a nice glass of wine and relax after touring all of those museums. And after that, Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Susan. I'll share my screen here. So the next part of Santa Fe that I'd like to focus on is the Railyard Arts District, as well as the Santa Fe Opera. So if you look at the map here, the Railroad Art District is sort of on the eastern side of the screen here. And we have a couple of other places we'll talk about. And the Santa Fe Opera is north of town, a short drive away. So that kind of orients you as to where things are in Santa Fe. Santa Fe Plaza if you can see on the map, is in the upper right-hand corner. So we're getting a little bit more spread out here as we discuss some of the further outlying sites. So the Railroad Arts District is really interesting. So Canyon Road is home to scores of great galleries, but its brash younger sister can be found in the Railroad Arts District, where art and galleries there tend to be more edgy and modernistic. So to begin our discussion of this district, I'd like to talk about breakfast because food is important. I suggest going to another local favorite restaurant, which is called Clafoutis. The pastry, baked goods, and omelets here are really excellent and will fill you up without weighing you down too much. And the Railyard District itself is a great area to explore, especially if your visit coincides with a weekend. Every Saturday morning, you'll find a fantastic farmer's market. So this is well worth a trip. There's a covered area for when the weather is not as great. And from May to November, if you're not there on a Saturday, there is a Tuesday market. So during the bulk of the year, you should be able to time your visit so you can get to one of these markets. They're really something. The next place I'd like to talk about is called Site Santa Fe. And this space opened in 2017, and it features these angular lines which contrast with the prevalent Pueblo revival style that we've been seeing so many buildings that have that style. Site Santa Fe has no permanent collection of its own to speak of, but rather serves as an exhibit space for contemporary art installations. So it's ever changing, and it lures visitors and locals alike to multiple visits, quite frankly. So it's an exciting development. After doing the farmer's market and Site Santa Fe, I think lunch at La Choza restaurant is a good place to go. This is really a traditional New Mexican cuisine restaurant. It's about a 7-minute walk or so from Site Santa Fe, and there are plenty of vegetarian and gluten-free options to appeal to all the diners in your party. Specialties include green chili stew and sopapillas, which are made from puffy fried dough and drizzled with honey. But you can also get a savory version, which is stuffed with delicious refried beans and covered with their famous chili and some cheese as well. So La Choza, good place to eat lunch, I think. After lunch, you'll want to spend some time in the afternoon at Meow Wolf. I know that's a very strange name for a place. It's kind of hard to describe what Meow Wolf is really, but it's this unusual, interactive, and immersive art installation with a mysterious feel. It's proven to be so popular that they opened up locations in Denver and Las Vegas. It's an experience not soon forgotten from what I understand. So you can see some of the rooms in the upper right-hand corner of the slide. Some are sort of neon, others are very stark black and white. You kind of navigate through these rooms in unusual ways. So if you're interested in that sort of art, it would be a fascinating experience, I think. I don't have any slides to highlight this next topic, but local resident George R.R. Martin, who is the author of the Game of Thrones series, purchased a movie theater in the Railyard Arts District. It's called the Jean Cocteau Cinema, and it screens an eclectic mix of films and hosts other performances as well. It has a full bar. So George R.R. Martin is, kind of a big deal in Santa Fe. He's been a great patron of the arts. Despite this influence that he has, he was thwarted last year because he wanted to build a medieval style tower on his property to house a library, kind of in the style of Game of Thrones. It exceeded the height restrictions in the historic district and was not in keeping with the style of the neighborhood. I should note that this property is not in the Railyard Arts District, but closer to Museum Hill, which Susan was talking about a moment ago. Our final destination tonight will be the Santa Fe Opera, but before we get there, we want to have a local specialty. This is a classic New Mexican dish. It's called the green chili cheeseburger. As you can see in the photo, it looks pretty much like a traditional cheeseburger, but it has this green chili sauce on it. For years, people have raved about the green chili cheeseburger at a place called the Bobcat Bite outside of Santa Fe. And it was featured on Hamburger America, Bizarre Foods, the Chicago Tribune, and roadfood.com, among others. So the Bobcat Bite shut down, but has been reimagined as the Santa Fe Bite. And they have the same great green chili cheeseburger there at the Santa Fe Bite. So I'd encourage you, if you're a meat eater, to check that out. So as I mentioned, the Santa Fe Opera is the last stop on this long day that we've had exploring the arts. If you visit Santa Fe during July or August, you would really be doing yourself a favor to try to get tickets to the opera. The facility is beautiful and it's state of the art and attracts really great talent to its open air stage. This year, for example, they're performing some crowd favorites, including Carmen, Tristan and Isolde, and the Barber of Seville. One of the interesting things about the Santa Fe Opera is that the show goes on despite thunderstorms, which may happen. The stage and seating areas are covered, but visitors on the sides may get a little wet. It sort of adds to the charm of the place. Traditionally, residents like to tailgate prior to the performance. It's a beautiful setting on the top of the hill, just a few minutes north of town, and highly recommended. So Susan's going to talk about some day trips next.
Yep. All right. So I've got 3 day trips that you can easily take when you're visiting Santa Fe. They would be 3 different days worth of trips. The first, if you can see Santa Fe here with the green pinhead, the first is up to Taos, which is north. The second one is going to be over here in the red pinheads, Los Alamos, and then the last is down here in the just kind of to the west, slightly south, the Kasha-Katuwe tent rocks. So I will talk about each one of these in a little bit of detail so that you know what to expect if you decide you want to try one of the trips. So let's start with Taos. Taos is only 67 miles north of Santa Fe. It's about an hour and a half of driving. It is home to one of the highest densities of artists in the Southwest, and it has the longest continuously inhabited pueblo. Today's Taos is small and laid back and artsy. It's also a little touristy, just be aware, maybe more than you would expect, but it's still worth the trip for sure. It's beautiful. If you have only one day to visit Taos, there are a few absolute must-dos on your list of what to do there. And the first would be to visit the Taos Pueblo seen here. It's the second would be to visit the more than 300-year-old San Francisco DSCC Church. The third would be to visit the Rio Grande Gorge Bridge, which is the 10th highest bridge in the US. And then the fourth would be to visit the Harwood Museum of Art. When you go to the Harwood Museum, you're not going to want to miss the Agnes Martin Gallery. The Agnes Martin Gallery features 7 paintings by this internationally acclaimed artist. The gallery was in fact built specifically for these paintings. Martin, who never conceived of her work as a series or as being exhibited in this fashion, was absolutely thrilled by the display, even going so far as to suggest these 4 Donald Judge benches that are arranged under the gallery's oculus. And during her lifetime, Martin visited this gallery frequently. and she would sit quietly on the benches, experiencing its unique setting. It's almost meditative. Scholars have compared the Agnes Martin Gallery to other galleries, such as the Matisse Chapel in Vence, Corbusier's Ronchamp Chapel, and the Rothko Chapel in Houston, all with the same kind of serene atmosphere. If you have a good amount of time on your hand, then try taking the high road from Santa Fe to Taos. This route is a 5-hour drive without stopping, but it is a really nice trip through New Mexico's backcountry with some unparalleled views. If you don't have the time, the low road is still a beautiful drive, and it's still worth taking. It's a lot faster. It's only an hour and a half. One historical stop that you might want to make between Santa Fe and Taos is shown down here in the lower left-hand corner. And it is in Chimayo, it's the Chapel of El Santuario de Chimayo. El Santuario de Chimayo is a small shrine that has been a place of worship since before its construction in 1813. For generations, American Indians, Hispanics, and other people of faith have traveled to this site to ask for healing and to offer prayers. And it is now one of the most important Catholic pilgrimage centers in the United States. But more importantly, it's also one of the most beautiful examples of Spanish colonial architecture in New Mexico. Typically, it attracts about 300,000 pilgrims from all over the Southwest and elsewhere each year. So it is a well-preserved small adobe church with these 2 twin front towers that you can see. It has wooden doors and a garden that is enclosed by a wall, an arched gate that has a cross on the top. And the interior is a very colorful mixture of Spanish and Indian decorations and styles. So the interior is really beautiful, and it's a nice stop on your way to or from Taos, going from Santa Fe. The second day trip idea that I have for you is a trip to Los Alamos and Bandelier National Monument. This is an itinerary that is really great for history and science buffs and anyone who's just curious. So it's not art, it's definitely science and history. The town of Los Alamos, New Mexico is possibly best known for being the site of the Los Alamos National Laboratories, which, if you don't know, it's the place where Dr. Oppenheimer worked on the first atomic bomb as part of the Manhattan Project. However, Los Alamos has a lot more to offer visitors besides just its atomic bomb history. There's Pueblo history and archaeological sites at the Bandelier National Monument. There are some great shopping experiences, including Los Alamos Cooperative Market. You can get craft brews at the Bathtub Row Brewing Company Co-op. And there are lots of opportunities for outdoor recreation as well. But you'll definitely want to stop by the Bradbury Science Museum, what I have pictured here on the left. And it offers a look into the history of Los Alamos and the Los Alamos National Laboratory. It features 40 different interactive exhibits throughout its 3 galleries, including research, defense, and history. The museum also has 2 films that share the work of the Los Alamos National Laboratory today, and also the story behind the Manhattan Project. From Los Alamos, it's about a 30-minute drive to get to Bandelier National Monument. And the drive takes you through canyons and mesa country, and it's really a beautiful drive. Bandelier National Monument preserves traces of ancient Pueblo people. And you're going to want probably an hour and a half at least for a visit, more if you're going to do more of the trails. The main trail, if you wander through it, it's going to be more like 4 hours. And you'll want to do that if you are interested in pre-Columbian history. The Bandelier National Monument was established to protect more than 33,000 acres of beautiful and rugged mesa and canyon country, where their evidence suggests people have lived for over 11,000 years. There are masonry and pueblos, petroglyphs, and they provide evidence of the area's ancestral Pueblo people. And the descendants of these people still live in the vicinity. Most visitors to Bandelier National Monument will start their journey on the main loop. It's a short loop trail that starts at the visitor center and travels through excavated archaeological sites. There is also a round trip 3-mile falls trail that leads down the canyon to an area where there are these stunning upper falls. And it's another striking example of an impressive collision between this beautiful natural environment and primitive history. So it's a unique and interesting visit. The last day trip that I want to mention is to Kasha-Katuwe Tent Rocks National Monument. It is a land of spectacular and really bizarre rock shapes and in the southwestern foothills of New Mexico's Yemas Mountains. It's about 35 miles to the west-southwest of Santa Fe. The hike through this national monument is a 3-mile loop, and it gives you a chance to see these really unique geological formations that are known as tent rocks. It's actually considered one of the best hikes in New Mexico. So if you are into hiking, it's definitely worth the trip. It's a one-way moderate loop, and you walk through a slot canyon with hoodoos and these striated rock formations of cones or teepees. And Kasha-Katuwe means white cliffs. And so that's, kind of the feeling that you're going to get. So these really interesting rock formations are the product of volcanic eruptions that took place 6 to 7 million years ago. They left pumice, ash, and tuff deposits over 1,000 feet thick. The explosions from the volcanic field spewed rock fragments, while searing hot gases blasted down the slopes in this incandescent avalanche that's called a pyroclastic flow. So as a result of this uniform layering of volcanic material, you get these bands of gray interspersed with beige and pink colored rocks all along the cliff. Then over the years, wind and water cut into these deposits, and that's what created these pointy hoodoos and this sinewy slot canyon that you see here on the right that you can hike through. And the tent rocks vary in height from just a few feet to 90 feet. So as you can see from the pictures, it's a really beautiful day trip, gets you out into nature and hiking, and you can see some of these very unique geological formations. And that is the end of our presentation to Santa Fe. We wanted to open it up to you all to see if you had any questions, or if any of you have been there and are interested in sharing any of your experiences there. We'd love to hear it. Well, if not, we will conclude our program. I will be sending out copies of the slides as well as an evaluation, a link to an online evaluation form. If you could let us know what you thought about the program, and if you have any ideas for future destinations.
Yeah, Jane, do you have a question?
Nope, that's applause.
Okay. Well, also in the evaluation form, if you could make a comment on whether this afternoon slot is good or bad from your perspective. we'd love to hear that as well. So yeah, Susan will send that link
And
out.
we will be putting the presentation on our recorded, right?
You know,
And
can I
we
say
will
something?
be posting this on the recorded events page on our website.
Yes,
Yes.
Carolyn, go ahead.
Carolyn, did you want to say something?
Yeah, we went there to Santa Fe when, now my daughter's 37. She must have been about 7 years old, 8 years old, 9 years old during spring break. We went to that area and up to Tahoe. And we also went up to Red Mountain where the ski resort is up there, which is a cute little area up there. We went fishing up there. Also, we did a whitewater rafting that was fabulous. They were training for the Olympics when we were there in the spring. We went horseback riding in the Indian reservations in the area. Like, you know, I'm trying to remember back 30 years, it's a long time. So there's another whole different area in Santa Fe that I can bring up that if you're doing with your children or your children and grandchildren, there's another different set of things that you can do in Santa Fe that's outdoor and very family friendly. We had a wonderful trip when we were there.
Oh, that's good to hear. Thank you for sharing that, Carolyn.
Okay.
Any other thoughts?
All right.
Well, thank you so much for coming. Sorry about all the strange changes, but we're delighted that you guys could join us today.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. It was fun.
Okay, good.
Bye-bye.